You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your PMP certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. When we talk about planning and managing budget and resources, we are really talking about stewardship. The budget is not just a number. It represents the planned cost of delivering the scope. Resources are not just people, but also the equipment, materials, and external services that enable work to get done. A project manager's responsibility is to orchestrate these elements in a way that delivers value, not just activity. Managing to value means ensuring that every dollar and every hour of labor is tied to something that produces measurable benefits or reduces meaningful risk. On the PMP exam, this shows up in questions where scope pressure threatens cost integrity, or where resource bottlenecks must be resolved without simply overloading staff. Thinking about budget in this way requires a mindset shift. Too often, budgets are treated as static buckets of money rather than dynamic expressions of strategy. A budget baseline is really a forecast of how value will be created over time, with costs phased according to when work will occur. As the steward of constraints, the project manager is expected to make transparent trade-offs. This means communicating openly with sponsors about where costs are concentrated, which risks are covered by reserves, and how resource allocation aligns with priorities. Exam questions often hide this behind phrasing like, "The sponsor is surprised by overruns." The correct action is never to hide problems but to bring them forward early with structured options. Planning the budget begins with estimates and grows into something more sophisticated. The baseline includes activity-level cost estimates, aggregated upward, but it also incorporates reserves. Contingency reserves are set aside for known unknowns, such as predictable rework or common delays, and these are part of the project manager's toolkit. Management reserves, however, are for unknown unknowns, events outside the original scope assumptions. These are not part of the baseline, and usually require governance approval to release. Distinguishing these is vital. On the exam, if a scenario involves drawing on management reserves casually, it is a red flag. PMI expects candidates to know contingency is under the PM's authority, but management reserves are not. Time phasing costs is another subtle but important discipline. It is not enough to know the total cost of a project. You must know when the money will be needed. Equipment may require upfront purchases, while labor costs accrue steadily. Some vendor contracts demand milestone-based payments, which must align with cash flow forecasts. A cost baseline must be tied directly to the schedule so that funding is available when the work is executed. Approval thresholds must also be defined, clarifying what the project manager can authorize independently versus when higher-level sign-off is needed. In the PMP exam, correct answers usually reflect respecting these thresholds, not bypassing them in the name of speed. Resources add another layer of complexity. It is not enough to count the number of people available. What matters is the match between capacity and demand. A team of 10 generalists may not be as effective as 5 specialists if the work requires deep expertise. Similarly, availability is a constraint. A key engineer may only be available part-time, which must be factored into plans. The project manager's role is to ensure that the right mix of skills is present and that onboarding and access lead times are built into the schedule. The exam often tests whether you recognize that resource availability and skills are as important as headcount. Clarity around roles and responsibilities reduces waste. ARACI style framework identifying who is responsible, who is accountable, who is consulted, and who is informed prevents duplication of effort and ensures accountability. Without clarity, teams waste resources chasing tasks that overlap or fall between cracks. Onboarding also consumes resources. New team members need access, training, and cultural integration before they contribute effectively. Skipping this planning leads to lower productivity and frustration. PMI expects project managers to account for this ramp-up, not assume new resources are instantly productive. On the exam, Answers that factor in access and readiness usually align with PMI's view of realistic planning. Managing resources also requires balancing workloads. Concepts like resource leveling and resource smoothing provide structured approaches. Resource leveling adjusts the schedule to resolve overallocation, even if it delays some tasks. Resource smoothing, by contrast, rearranges work within existing slack so the overall critical path is not affected. Both approaches protect against burnout and preserve sustainable throughput. Another hidden cost is context switching. Splitting one resource across too many tasks reduces efficiency. Vendors bring further complexity, with service-level agreements dictating how quickly they must respond or deliver. In exam scenarios, the correct answer often involves structured leveling or smoothing, not simply pushing staff harder. Execution requires disciplined monitoring of both costs and resources. The project manager must track actual expenditures against the cost baseline and tie this tracking to the value delivered. It is not enough to report that 50% of the budget has been spent. Stakeholders want to know whether 50% of the value has been realized. Similarly, tracking resources is not just about hours consumed, but about throughput achieved. Leading indicators, such as burn rates or capacity trends, warn when variances may appear before they become serious. PMI emphasizes that urgency requires proactive adjustments, not reactive firefighting. Leading indicators deserve emphasis. Burn rate tells you how quickly funds are being consumed relative to the work accomplished. If the burn rate accelerates while progress slows, that is a red flag for overruns. Capacity trends reveal whether resources are consistently stretched too thin, suggesting risks to quality and schedule. Monitoring these signals allows project managers to intervene early with trade-offs, such as deferring low-value tasks or redistributing workload. On the exam, distractors often encourage wait and see. The correct answer emphasizes early intervention based on trend analysis, not reacting after the damage is done. Communication is inseparable from cost and resource monitoring. When variances appear, the project manager must present impacts and options clearly. For example, we are over budget by 10% due to vendor costs. Options include reducing scope, requesting contingency release, or negotiating contract adjustments. Presenting choices with consequences empowers sponsors to decide in alignment with organizational priorities. What is never correct is hiding the problem or making unilateral decisions without stakeholder input. PMI stresses stewardship, not heroics. The exam consistently rewards answers where the project manager communicates early, with structured options on the table. Changes to budget and resources demand a disciplined sequence. First, impact analysis must be performed, looking not just at cost, but at schedule, risk, and benefit delivery. Only then should change requests be submitted to governance. After approval, baselines are updated and reserves adjusted. Exam stems often reverse this order, tempting candidates to re-baseline first. That is incorrect. PMI requires analysis and approval before baselines move. This sequence preserves accountability and prevents baselines from being manipulated to mask poor performance. Reserves are often revisited during change management. If new risks appear, contingency may need to increase or new funding may be required from management reserves. Forecasts must then be recalculated, incorporating the impact of changes. Staffing plans may also require revision, particularly if changes create new demand for scarce skills. Sponsors must be kept informed of these adjustments early, not after the fact. On the exam, correct answers highlight revisiting reserves and updating forecasts after structured analysis, not skipping straight to approvals or adjustments without context. Transparency with sponsors is non-negotiable. When cost or resource issues arise, sponsors must hear about them immediately with context and structured options. Nothing erodes trust faster than late disclosure of problems. A project manager who engages sponsors early, even with difficult news, builds credibility. This also enables timely decisions that protect value. On the exam, the correct answer almost always involves communicating early with structured trade-offs, not hiding problems or improvising solutions outside governance. PMI emphasizes stewardship, which means protecting both delivery and trust. Budget and resource planning are not mechanical exercises. They are the scaffolding that sustains value delivery. The project manager acts as a steward, ensuring every decision about cost or staffing is tied to benefits and openly managed. On the PMP exam, distractors often involve shortcuts, overspending reserves without approval, rebaselining too soon, or hiding conflicts. The correct answers consistently involve planning, transparency, and governance discipline as the foundation of responsible project management. To manage budgets and resources effectively, project managers need tools that not only describe where the project is, but also forecast where it is headed. One of the most powerful sets of tools for this is earned value management. Earned value translates progress into financial terms so that cost, schedule, and performance can be analyzed together. It begins with three fundamental measures. Planned value, sometimes abbreviated PV, is the budgeted cost of the work scheduled to be done at a certain point in time. Earned value, or EV, is the budgeted cost of the work that has actually been completed. Actual cost, or AC, is how much has been spent to accomplish that work. These three numbers are the backbone of earned value calculations. Once PV, EV, and AC are known, you can calculate variances. Schedule variance is earned value minus planned value. If the result is negative, the project is behind schedule. If positive, it is ahead. Cost variance is earned value minus actual cost. A positive number here means the project is under budget, while a negative result signals overspending. Ratios add further clarity. The schedule performance index is earned value divided by planned value. Values greater than 1 mean efficiency on schedule. Values less than 1 mean lagging. The cost performance index is earned value divided by actual cost, with the same logic. Greater than 1 means cost efficiency, less than 1 means inefficiency. Forecasts build on these indices. The estimate at completion, or EAC, projects what the total project cost will be if current trends continue. Several formulas exist, chosen based on assumptions about future performance. If cost performance issues are expected to persist, EAC equals budget at completion divided by the cost performance index. If both schedule and cost performance are expected to continue, you can use budget at completion divided by the product of CPI and SPI. If you believe current variances are one-time anomalies, EAC may simply be actual cost plus the remaining budget. Estimate to complete is simply EAC minus actual cost, forecasting how much more money is needed. A related measure is the To Complete Performance Index, or TCPI, which tells you how efficient you must be with the remaining work to meet either the original budget or a new forecast. It is calculated by dividing the remaining budget by the funds remaining. If TCPI is higher than 1, it means the team must work more efficiently than planned to stay within budget. If it is lower than 1, the project has some cushion. On the exam, PMI expects candidates not just to do the math, but also to explain what the numbers mean. A CPI of 0.8, for example, should immediately be interpreted as the project is only delivering 80 cents of value for every dollar spent. Agile and hybrid projects interpret cost control differently. In agile settings, team costs are often fixed per sprint or iteration. The calculation is straightforward. Multiply team cost per sprint by the number of sprints, then evaluate whether the slices of value being delivered justify the expense. Performance is tracked by throughput, velocity, or cycle time trends rather than formal indices. Hybrid projects must bridge these views. Agile teams report their velocity, while governance bodies expect baseline comparisons. The project manager translates agile metrics into the language of baselines, showing how fixed team costs align with scope delivered. On the exam, the correct answer usually involves bridging, not ignoring, these different perspectives. The key in agile and hybrid contexts is to keep the focus on value, not effort. Hours burned are meaningless if they do not produce usable increments of value. A sprint may cost $50,000, but the real question is whether the sprint delivered features or capabilities that create benefits. Stakeholders should be shown trends, such as consistent velocity, alongside financial consumption, so they see how investment translates into outcomes. PMI stresses that managing to value is as important in agile contexts as it is in predictive ones. On the exam, answers that emphasize outcomes and benefits usually outperform those that emphasize hours or cost alone. Let's ground this in a scenario. Imagine earned value is 400, actual cost is 500, and planned value is 450. What does this tell us? First, earned value minus planned value equals minus 50. That means the project is behind schedule because it has earned less value than planned. Next, earned value minus actual cost equals minus 100. That means the project is over budget because it cost more than the value delivered. The indices confirm this. Earned value divided by planned value is 0.89, showing schedule inefficiency. Earned value divided by actual cost is 0.8, showing cost inefficiency. In this situation, a sponsor may ask, what happens next? The project manager has several options. One is to re-baseline immediately, but that is rarely correct. Re-baselining first hides problems instead of fixing them. Another is to add more people, but that often increases cost without fixing inefficiency. Cutting scope quietly undermines governance. The correct course is to analyze the variance drivers with the responsible work package owner, propose targeted corrective actions, and then update forecasts. For example, inefficiency might stem from underestimated complexity, which could be resolved through training or revised sequencing. On the exam, the correct answer is usually to investigate first, then act with transparency. If this were an agile project, the same situation would be expressed differently. Instead of earned value math, the team would look at velocity. If fewer backlog items are completed than expected, the project manager and product owner would explore whether the backlog is ordered correctly, whether scope needs adjusting, or whether additional technical spikes are required. The principle is the same. Analyze the root cause, make trade-offs visible, and then adjust transparently. PMI emphasizes that even though the tools differ, the discipline of analyzing before acting remains constant. Exam pitfalls in this area are predictable. One common mistake is doing the math correctly but failing to interpret it. Simply reporting that CPI is 0.8 is incomplete, unless you explain that the project is over budget and must either improve efficiency or increase cost. Another pitfall is rebaselining too early. PMI expects rebaselining to be the last step, taken only after analysis and corrective actions have been attempted. Treating reserves as slack without approval is another trap. Contingency is planned, but management reserves always require governance. Over-allocating people and ignoring resource conflicts also count as failures in stewardship. Hiding resource conflicts is especially damaging. Over-allocating staff may look like a quick solution, but it leads to burnout, errors, and ultimately more cost. PMI stresses that project managers should confront resource conflicts early and resolve them through prioritization or transparent trade-offs. The exam often disguises this in scenarios where the sponsor asks you to assign the same person to multiple high-priority tasks. The tempting but wrong answer is to comply. The correct one is to highlight the conflict, present options, and let stakeholders decide based on priorities. A quick playbook can simplify this complex domain. Step 1. Plan your cost baseline with contingency and management reserves clearly separated, and align resource capacity to value delivery. Step 2. Monitor performance using earned value in predictive projects, or throughput metrics in Agile, always interpreting what the numbers mean. Step 3. Forecast using explicit assumptions, stating whether you expect current trends to continue or improve. Step 4. Resolve conflicts through prioritization, not overallocation, and manage changes through policy, not shortcuts. Step 5. Communicate early and always with options, ensuring sponsors remain informed and empowered. On the exam, answers that echo this discipline reflect PMI's philosophy of stewardship. In conclusion, planning and managing budget and resources is about discipline, transparency, and stewardship. Budgets must align with value, reserves must be respected, and resources must be matched to demand sustainably. Earned value provides structured insight into cost and schedule performance, while agile methods tie fixed costs to incremental value. The project manager's role is not to make problems invisible, but to make them transparent and manageable. On the PMP exam, the best answers consistently stress analysis before action, transparent communication, and disciplined governance. This is how projects sustain both financial integrity and delivery credibility. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.